Hey everybody, welcome back to the 120th episode of Taps of Patience. I'm AJ with Audacity Micro and Subtract Manufacturing, and still bad at podcasting, here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity.
To give that a second shot, 120 what?
127.
There we go.
In my defense, I just ate a popsicle.
Oh, okay. No worries.
That's what I'm going to go with.
No worries. We've attached. We've gotten the attention of my watch. It was just beeping at me, going, "What do you want?"
We're great professional podcasters here.
Wonderful start.
Yeah, a real podcaster would probably just restart the episode, but
we keep it raw.
Yeah, that's always been my excuse for low quality content.
Hey, no, we're dirty jobs. We do it all in one take.
Yeah. Did Dirty Jobs do it all as one take?
Yes. Yeah. If you've ever listened to him talk about his time on Dirty Jobs, they only did everything one take. They would never redo takes. They would either use the take or they would get rid of it, but they would never redo it.
Interesting.
So
what have you been up to?
Still relatively slow, but we've got a lot of stuff planned for this coming week.
Ooh, CMM. How's your CMM?
Tomorrow. The tech shows up tomorrow.
See, this is what the people really care about, is Harrison's new CMM. When you get a new machine, our ratings go through the roof. So keep buying them.
Yeah, no, so we gotta, well, if that's the case, then we got a lot to talk about. So, because nothing has happened yet, but we've got a lot of stuff scheduled to happen.
Such as?
So, Monday, we have a CMN. We're going to have the tech to come in to start working on the CMN. Tuesday, we're going to look at a Doosan Lynx lathe in someone else's shop to kind of see if that's the direction we're still kind of leaning towards for that.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, we have some people coming out to demo a robotic arm.
Okay.
And then I have been on the phone with Gimbal Automation looking at some of their in-machine automation solutions for some of the projects we have coming up.
I think that's a great option for you.
So, while nothing has been happening job shop wise, we've been attacking everything else on the other front. Weston's getting closer to getting us ISO certified and AS 9100. We've done a lot of shop improvements. So we don't have a lot of work flowing through the shop, but we have a whole lot of stuff going on just adjacent to the shop. So,
yeah. This is probably good for you to have a little bit of downtime before we get into the end of the year rush.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I really want to get this massive order, and it's really making me nervous. And so we started doing some research, and I'm really liking Gimbal Automation as cheap, cost-effective solution for these pretty simple parts. And I think we can get at least, I don't know, just running some basic numbers, I think I can get 12 hours of unattended runtime on the Doosan because the table's so big.
Which is really all you need because that's overnight.
Yeah. And so...
especially if you and Easton move to a split shift. Weston. Wrong direction.
Not Easton. Weston.
Yeah, I hear they're really far apart.
East and West. I hadn't thought about it that way. Easton and Weston. No. Yeah, no. So I really like that idea for the Doosan because in theory, I could potentially fulfill that whole order on the Doosan, keeping it running basically 24/7 with a gimbal setup.
On the lathe?
On the mill.
Oh. Not on the new lathe. You were looking at the Doosan Lynx. But yeah, putting the gimbal automation setup, I assume traditional spindle gripper with part loading?
Yeah.
Not the pallet system. Okay.
And it'd have to be fourth axis automation. So we'd have to... So I was on the phone with Gimbal last week, briefly on Friday. They're supposed to be sending me over a preliminary quote, but I haven't. We're gonna have to send a model and get some NDAs signed and some of that other fun stuff to try to kind of figure out if that's the right direction. But what I like about it is, and kind of what my initial plan is, and this is all up in the air. So like, this is all like extremely still trying to figure it out. But in an ideal world, we'd probably end up with a robot on the UMC, and it could do all the magwells, and hopefully a minimum of 20%, maximum of probably 50% of this other order. And then if it can handle both of those automated, or all of the magwells and a percentage of the other one, then the Doosan could have the capacity to do 100% if needed, which could do one of two things. One, if we're not using the Doosan, it can build up excess stock. And two, if we have excess stock, or if the UMC goes down for any reason, we can run the Doosan 100% to keep up with the order. And if we have excess stock, we can pull it off of this other project and get other job shop stuff through it. And in a best case scenario, we can run it every night, and that's enough in combination with the UMC to keep up with the order, and then still use it during the day for job shop stuff.
Okay. Have you considered the gimbal solution for the UMC? Because they have a really slick pallet loading system for that.
Their intro load, I don't think I can get 12 hours out of it is the problem.
Just due to number of pallets?
Yes. Combination of several things. The parts run really quick, and so I would need to house a minimum of, I think, 16 pallets to get 12 hours. Or no, it'd be 16 pallets wouldn't even get me 12 hours. 16 pallets would only give me 8 hours. It's about 30 minutes a pallet. And I think it can only hold 12, at least of the size that we're trying to do. And so that would give us 8 hours, which isn't nothing, but we're looking at some other solutions. So on the UMC front, I am less sure of the direction to go because one, it's going to be doing two different products, and two, I'm not sure if we're going to part load or if we're going to pallet load. The magwells, if I could find a way to part load them, that would be ideal. I'm still not convinced that's the right direction for that particular product, but for this other one, it's a rectangular block. Like Gimbal would eat that up. It's going to be very simple for Gimbal to do that one.
Yeah. So that makes sense. I really like the gimbal system, and that's probably the way I would go.
So if I can take some weight off the UMC, because even if we left the UMC running the way it is right now, we can almost meet demand at $1,500 a month. It basically has to be running flat out anytime we're there at the shop. If I can get some automation in there, then that gives us some wiggle room to kind of get ahead or catch up or run it after hours and still have that machine for other stuff. So that's what we got to figure out.
What's the VF3 doing?
VF3 is just doing job shop stuff right now.
Okay. So that's your kind of general purpose machine.
That's kind of our general purpose machine. And we've got another product. Well, those guitar parts. One of the guys, so there's 3 guys that are trying to get this off the ground, and one of the guys quit his job to try to make this company work. So they're taking this very seriously, a lot more serious than I thought they were. And so that could turn into something, which means the excess capacity that I have could end up going towards the VF. The problem is that ties up all 3 of my machines with production work, and I still have job shop customers. So we have 2 problems there. One, this medical company, which is the other reason we're looking at the links, because it's a lot of lathe parts. And if I could do it all on one machine without having to do mill and lathe work and split it between 2, that's one reason we'd get the links.
Because it would be live tooled.
Because it'd be live tooled and dual spindled.
Yeah.
And so even though it'd be pretty hard to leave it unattended for the high Rockwell parts. But I could still have it run, 3 parts and then have it, pause to say operator come check and then another 3. And as we kind of get things dialed in and kind of get an idea of tool life, we could still have it run for 30 minutes at a time, at least, maybe even an hour unattended, and then just come check on it and make sure the parts are doing good. And it would, and the big advantage is it wouldn't take up 2 machines.
Yeah.
And so I'd still have my Haas lathe for job shop and my VF3 for job shop. But very quickly with production work, I could end up needing another mill and another lathe.
Yeah, so you're one more production order away from needing a new mill or new lathe.
Yeah. Now,
if you had
all that's speculative because none of it's hit. That's the part. It's like I'm teetering on an edge of like, if all of this stuff happens at the same time, which we've already got 1,000 parts on order from the medical stuff, but like if the other 2 jobs start pumping out parts, then we're going to be buried. And I already know that I have a job shop customer, the first one we ever had. They have a big project with 5 or 8 lines of machines worth of parts that they're supposed to be releasing into the month. So I still got those parts that I got to get through. So those I know are coming our way. The medical parts that we've agreed to, I know are coming. And in end of September, I think October, my Magwells jumped from $500 a month back up to $1,500 a month. So like, I know for sure some of the stuff. The 60,000 piece order, we've got our parts sent in for first article. And so once those pass first article, we've already done an inspection on our end. They just need to do an inspection on their end to confirm what we've done. That could hit. And then it's just the guitar parts. And we did get another well, the battleship hinges could be coming again because it's been about 3 months. So like everything could be hitting. So it could be going from like I'm twiddling my thumbs to like I can't breathe.
Yeah. So if you had, I don't know, whatever order come through or all of these production runs hit at the same time and you had to go buy another mill, what would you go? Would you go another 5-axis? Would you go 3-axis?
If I can make gimbal automation work, the guitar parts I should work on a 4-axis machine, and I would be looking at probably a Speedio-like machine because it's small aluminum parts with a gimbal automation setup. That's what's making me really want to try gimbal on the Doosan, is that as it stands, I only have room in the middle aisle before I need to extend onto my building. So the only machine that I could really fit in there would probably be something like a Speedio or a Robo Drill or a Haas DT, something of that size and classification. Yeah. And if I can get automation on it, it would have to be without a robot because I don't have the space for it. So that would probably be gimbal automation. So if I can get gimbal working on the Doosan, that'll be a good test bed. That way, if I get my back gets to the wall and I need to buy another mill, I can just go pick something out. The biggest machine I can fit with the most table space. That way I can get the longest unattended runtime on that.
Makes sense.
So that's kind of what we're gearing up for. And we're looking at getting 400 amps to our shop. So
we've been up from 200.
Up from 200. So we've been in talks with the power company, and I think they should be trying to put that in the next month. Because if we are going to get any more machines, we're basically capped out right now.
Okay. Though Speedios just kind of sip electricity. They're pretty efficient.
Yeah. But we're up around 150-ish amps. And the Lynx, I think, is like a 65 amp.
Yeah, that would do you in.
So I think if we just got a Speedio, we'd be okay. But if we got a lathe, I don't think we could run them all at the same time.
Yeah, you'd have to like change the acceleration curve on the spindle to slowly wind up.
Yeah.
So it doesn't draw too much current.
So, lot of potential. And what's frustrating is we're slow enough that I've been wanting to get some, like, my instinct is to go get more work, but I've got enough history now to know that a lot of this work is going to hit and it's all going to hit at the same time. And if I
Yeah.
were to go accept some like zometry jobs, that's like
That's when,
guaranteed. That's
well,
like
yeah, guarantee the order.
that's going to guarantee the orders. And then I'm not going to care about zometry. And I'm
Yeah.
going to be mad because that's what's happened in the past is I get slow like this. I go accept a couple zometry jobs and then we get slammed with orders. And I'm like, I don't really care about these zometry orders, but now I'm stressing myself out more than I should be. So, anyways, that's what I mean by like not a lot's happening, but at the same time we're kind of preparing as on a lot of different fronts.
Well, I pulled
So,
up our numbers here, and when you bought your UMC, that was our second most viewed episode.
wow.
So all you need to do is buy a Kern, and I bet we can break the 10,000 view mark
I'm not there yet,
yet.
but I've been thinking about it, like not buying a current, but like as we continue to grow, what direction do we want to continue to go in? And I don't know, like I think we're gonna have to get a new building before I get too exotic.
Yeah, you're not too far off from that. We
So,
should go back and listen to the old episodes where I predicted when you would be in a new building. I probably said 2025. I bet it's 2026.
well, do you want to know what's funny? We were still in the garage shop longer than we've been in this shop.
I'm not surprised at all. The rate you guys are growing is kind of nuts.
Yeah, it is and it isn't. Like day to day, it still feels slow, but when you turn around and you look behind, it's like actually there's a lot that's happened.
Yeah. Well, I think for the most part, things have gone fairly smoothly for you. Like, in terms of, not saying there's not a lot of work, but like, you're not doing, like, if you were doing the same amount of business in prototyping work where everything is difficult and like one offs, I think you'd be far more stressed than you are now. But because of the way you've structured your business, you do get to spend that time like getting good at doing one thing and optimizing it and
Yeah,
like taking the time to smooth it out versus, someone like Dylan, I bet is like, I bet their day seems much more stressful than your day does. I mean, Dylan's good at what he does, and I'm sure he's gotten used
yeah,
to it by now. But it's a much more stressful model than just straight production. Not that production doesn't have its own stresses, but
yeah. They all have their pros and cons. The beautiful thing about job shop work, or not job shop work, production work, is that you got a high volume, so you can spend that time to kind of get things dialed in and get a process going, and then it just kind of runs in the background. The stressful thing about it is that if you're dependent upon that income, and then all of a sudden for
yeah.
whatever reason that all gets shut off just like that, it's like, oh, that's a really big hit versus the job shop world. If someone doesn't send us 5 parts, it's not as big of a deal because someone
Yeah.
else will probably fill that in.
Job shop is like a bunch of little stresses that add up, whereas production work is like a few huge stresses.
And production work is playing the long game. Like when job shop work comes in, it might be I get a phone call on a Monday and by Wednesday we've got a PO in hand, and then by the following Monday we've got material, and by the end of the following week we've delivered the parts. Where production work, it's like we'll get a print, and then there'll be kind of some back and forth, and then we'll do some prototypes, then there'll be some back and forth, and then we'll do some first articles, and there'll be some back and forth, and then we might get a small batch, and then a larger batch, and then a larger batch, and before you know it, it's been 6 months to a year, and then you're starting to ramp up production. And so it's like, okay, in the beginning, like you're making almost no money for like the first 6 months or longer as you're trying to get everything kind of in a line and get all of your vendors figured out and your outside processes figured out, and it's a lot slower. And my biggest annoyance with it is the outside processes, because and we're only sending out anodizing, but it can still really bite you in the butt. So, which is why we're trying to get more inventory on hand. Like, we've been trying to run lean and like only deliver it when they need it, but we're running into problems where we're getting our parts done in time, but then we send out something to an outside vendor and then they send back, and we're supposed to be sending them 250 parts, in a batch or whatever, and 13 parts come out bad. And it's like, okay, so do we hold the whole batch of 250? Do we send them a partial order? Like, it just really muddies the water. And then it's like, I like to send it in batches of 250 because then we know exactly how many they have. All of our
Mm-hmm.
packaging is designed around that. And then what happens if I send them, say, 235, and I got 15 parts that are out to another vendor, and then when we get those back, do I just bill them for 13 parts and just send those along? And then if those get lost in transit or misplaced because they're not in that same big batch, like, it just creates all kinds of problems. So if we can kind of get on the front end of that and kind of be like, okay, we've got it in a month ahead of production. That way, when that comes up, we can ship out and it's sitting there. But then you have excess inventory. But is it excess inventory at that point?
That is the question. Because not all inventory is evil. Or excess inventory is evil.
Yeah, and so that's just what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, evil might be a strong word there.
Yeah, but ideally we want to run as lean as we can, but getting ahead of that so that we don't cause problems for them is what we need to do. So far, we haven't caused any problems for them. They do have a lot of other suppliers that are
causing problems.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of a high level view of what's going on in my world right now. So,
I feel like we'll know a lot more about what your next 6 months is going to look like in like a month.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that, like, right now I'm trying to play 4D chess and plan out moves in advance, but I don't know what I'm going to do until I got a PO in my hand.
Yep.
Because that's when the rubber meets the road. But anyways, I've really liked the gimbal automation stuff. I'll just say that, just from like having some time to actually reflect on it this week, and doing some research, I'm really liking that idea for the Doosan.
Yep, it's a good system.
So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, what about you? What's going on in your world?
So mostly teaching. I have been also making parts. I have an order that I need to ship on Thursday, which wouldn't have been a big problem, except somehow, and I'm going to assume this was my fault, but I had one of my classes written down as being a 1 week class. Turns out it's a 2 week class. And the time I thought I had next week to make those parts is non existent. So I'll have to figure that out. I may or may not have gone into the school today and set up a mini mill to maybe or maybe not make those parts while I am teaching. And I also may or may not have gone yesterday and ran the first batch on 3 different VF2s at the same time.
Is that the excuse that was used to play with a robot?
And I got to play with a robot, yeah. And I did need to get that mini mill up and running. That mini mill has not run since I took over. And that means it probably hasn't run for the last, I'd say, easily 5 years. Because the instructor before me, for whatever reason, despite us having 6 different mills at our disposal, 5 of which are in good shape, he only ever taught using one machine. Regardless if it was a class of 3 people or a class of 12 people, he just did everything on one machine. I don't know why, but my first couple weeks there, I got the 3 VF2s all running and kind of to the same point. And just yesterday, I got the mini mill set up, and it needed a probe tip. I had to calibrate actually, Scott did it for me. Scott came by and Scott got some lessons in setting up machines. So Scott did a large part of setting up that mini mill, calibrated the OTS, calibrated the probe, put a new tip on it. I trammed in the vise, and I need to do some coolant work. It has coolant in it, but it's bad. And I was too afraid to turn that on today. But to test the mill, I cut some soft jaws that may or may not be my op2 work holding for those parts. So those I'll knock those out. Like, I don't know. I'll probably like start one before class and start another one at lunch, and then start one in my class transition and then one after. So that's like 4 pretty easily in a day. And I could probably sneak more in during class time. And I got to play with the robot. So at one point on one of our mini mills, we had a integrator just show up one day, and I don't know why or how. Like, this was probably arranged by like the main campus of the university, but they just dropped off a robot in front of a mini mill and put an air vise on it and started hooking it up. And they never actually finished. They ran into issues where they couldn't get there's like some safety signal that the robot sends to the Haas that allows the robot to open the door while a program is active.
Okay.
So it can do its part loading and unloading. And they never got that working, is what I understand. But then they left and haven't come back. So yesterday I went and played with the robot, and I was trying to get it to open the door, like with the claw. Yes, it has auto doors. That's not the point. Like, I needed some exercise to learn how to use the robot. And I was able to get it to do all the movements. I didn't get it to open the door before I left because there was like a safety, like a force limit that was causing the robot to e-stop. I think because, ironically, of the auto doors, because the doors are auto doors, there was it took a fair amount of force to open the door, and the robot didn't like that. So I didn't look too deep into solving that problem.
Which, for anyone who's listening who wants to use a robot to open the doors instead of getting an auto door, everyone that I've ever talked to who is a robot integrator who has dealt with problems with the cobots in that setting is because the cobot opens those doors, because for whatever reason that opening of the doors causes a lot of strain to the joints. And I don't know all the technical stuff behind it, but picking up the weights that are something static is much less wear and tear than grabbing onto something that's stationary and on its own linear system and trying to drag it or move it. It creates loads that are like spike high and wear out the joints prematurely.
Yeah, Dylan sent me a message and said the same thing. So I was like, well, I was just doing it for fun because I needed something to do.
Yeah, but everything that I've ever heard about that, like you were just playing around with it, so I get it. But for anyone else who's thinking about the same idea, that's the only reason I say that warning.
Yep. I do want to get that up and running for the school. I think it would be fun. I don't know what I would do. Part of me wants to find some part that I can make that's super, super, super cheap and just see how many I can make without running into issues. I was thinking about using pennies as stock because it's hard to buy material cheaper than pennies. I'll just go to the bank and give them a 10 and 1,000 pennies. Is that 1,000 pennies? Yeah, that'd be 1,000 pennies.
One thing you could do is one of the high school that's near us, they got some grant and they got a massive machine facility. And so I got to tour it while I was in university, which is a whole story that I don't know if I've ever talked about, but I'm upset that the university didn't work with them on that. But one of the demos they had was they did a giant coin that was engraved on both sides with the school and then with the program on different sides. And so you could do that with a robot where you could do a piece of round bar and cut it up like coins and then face it, do one side as a logo, flip it over, and then do the back side. And so you could do that with like the school and the program or something else and then hand those out to people as like a souvenir.
Yep, that would be cool. But it's not exactly a high priority, but it's fun to play with. And like, if I'm gonna learn how to set up automated part loading, like taking the time to do it on someone else's machine is probably not the worst decision.
No.
But yeah, I don't know. It's there, so I'm gonna play with it. I guess at the end of that story. I've been doing something a little bit different with teaching, or well, I've been working towards something a little bit different with teaching. I haven't entirely implemented it all the way, but I'm close.
Is it teaching them CNC before manual?
I have been doing that, and I am going to keep doing that. I do have one update on there of one slight problem I found with it.
What's that?
We get to the manual part, and all of my students are like, "This is dumb. Why can't we do it on the CNC mills?" They're like, "Why are you cranking hand wheels? This is ridiculous."
Yeah.
And so that is a valid problem with teaching CNC first. But we are, I would say, 2 weeks ahead on this 8-week course over doing manual mills first, or manual machining first, I should say.
Nice.
It's worked really well. And then the other thing I've been doing, or working towards, I should say. I had this realization the other day that like, and this is clearly I just listened to too much incremental. The way that teaching is traditionally done and the way that I've always done it is a command and control style system. It's push, where I, will sit down and I'm planning out my week or my day or whatever. I'll say, okay, let's say I'm planning out my week. On this day, I need to cover this. On this day, I need to cover this. On this day, I need to cover this. And we'll do, these 3 parts or whatever. And then you go to do it and it's like, oh, well, day 1, the lecture took too long. And so then we ran out of time for the parts. And then day 2, we had to finish the parts before we could do the, and it just snowballs. It's classic scheduling issues. And it's like, why am I doing this as a push system? Like, I'm such a believer in lean. Why am I not handling my classes more this way? And I'm not quite all the way transitioned in. But what I've started doing is breaking down all of my different lectures and labs, or my shop activities. I've started calling them labs for the sake of this, and breaking them down into what's essentially a Kanban card. And now I have like a standard day schedule where I do an hour of labs, or an hour of lecture, and then lab until lunch, and then an hour of lecture, and then lab until the end of the day. And I just go through Kanban cards in order. The eventual goal is to get to the point where my cards are detailed enough that if a student has had the relevant labs, or had the relevant lectures, they can take the lab Kanban cards and run with them without like my direct showing them how to do it. I'll still be there to help and to, make sure nothing gets crashed or whatever. But that would allow different students to work at different speeds, depending on if they're high speed or need a little bit more hand holding, which is very much a problem I'm having right now with my current class. Is, well, one, the class is a little bit bigger, and this is one of the reasons why I needed to get that mini mill set up. I normally have like 3 to 6 students because I'm taking like groups of apprentices from businesses, and this class is 12. And so we had, with 3 VF2s running, we had 4 people per machine. And I think I ended up with one group where everyone in the group was fast and another group where everyone in the group was slow. And the time difference between the fast group and the slow group is rather substantial. And so that results in the fast group waiting around on the slow group. We do get to, there is some benefit where when the fast group gets done, the other groups can start using their mill because we've standardized all the setups and everything. But like, I don't like wasting anybody's time.
Do you
if
have,
they're just waiting on the other people in the class?
What you could do is you could come up with some side projects that are
a
side project based on their current level, where if you get done early with this lesson, here's something of similar level that you can do on your own that's similar complexity, just to continue to test yourself and grow at your own, like just to reinforce what we just went through.
Yeah, I have some kind of standard like shop projects that I send people to. Like making a deburring tool is one that I use a lot, and making a like a brass hammer, which is something that we need in the shop more. So I have people do those. But some more things like that would probably be a good idea. That's much easier on the manual machines than on the CNC ones. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because I would have to prep it ahead of time. With the manual ones, I can just be like, go for it, just wing it. With
Yeah.
the CNC, I have to program it, which
Yep.
granted is a lot easier with Toolpath, but because I did that a lot in my last class.
Yeah.
Um, but this, yeah. So right now, it's a matter of making good lab cards and good lecture cards, and I've made pretty good progress on the lecture cards, and it's really like taken a fairly good mental load off me, because now I don't really plan out lessons. What I do at the beginning of the week is I just sit down and I go, okay, these are the cards we need to go through. And I just put them in order and put them in my binder. And every card has basically the topics I need to cover, a simplified version of my notes, and then like review questions. And it's like, if I do those things and, they can answer the questions at the end, then we're good and move on to the next card. And then the lab cards on them have the prereqs, and it's like, okay, before I can release this lab card, they need to have this lecture, this lecture, and this lecture. So like, obviously the first thing is safety lecture, no labs before safety lecture. But they can okay, I don't think I have anything that's completely independent of lectures, but like, lecture number 1 for me, pretty much regardless of whatever class, is reading calipers. And so, first lecture, reading calipers, and then that'll release a lab into the systems that's like, here's a part and a blank drawing, fill out all the dimensions on the blank drawing. And that gets released to the lab Kanban queue. So that's what I've been working on. It's been a lot of turning my notes into standardized cards. That's what I've been spending the last week or so on. And turning like the simple Fusion setup sheet I had for the parts into a more detailed program for the lab, like lectures with the lab. One of these days I'll use the right word, but for the lab procedures. So, but I did have wait, I need to go back a step. Also, I'm going to open source all this stuff. So once my cards are to a more usable form, I'm going to throw them up on the internet somewhere. And if someone else wants to use them to teach their own class or to, start as a starting point for something else, they are welcome to do so. And I'll release like programs and setup sheets and everything, so people can make the parts I've designed.
Nice.
I did just get some news though, and
What's
this
that?
is the bigger thing. So I had been booked with the school for the next 11 months.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that was 40 hours a week. Some of that was 60 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of one of the reasons why Subtract was built the way it was built, is because I knew this was going to be taking over all of my time. And Subtract was built in a way that it would still run without me, micromanaging.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that was through one company that was a government contractor, and there were some politics involved, and suddenly that contractor doesn't have the business that they thought they were getting, and they canceled the contract with the school.
Oh.
So I thought I was starting that up like September 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And now that is gone. I just found that out the other day.
So how much more teaching are you going to be doing? Or is that completely off the table?
So that is a good question. I don't really know yet. My DOC class is going to continue. That's like 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off, 20 hours a week, which is great. I love that class. That class is really easy to teach. It's really fun to teach, and it's not that big of a time commitment. I plan on doing that forever, basically as long as I can. There will more than likely be other random classes that come up with other companies. I've done a couple with the company that I'm doing work for now, but it'll be sporadic. It'll be, a week or two a month, maybe 2 weeks every 2 months, something like that.
So, does this change your long-term strategy for either Subtract, Audacity, or both?
Long term, no. Short term, yes. Um, this the reason I agreed to do all this teaching is because it paid really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been something like 3 or 4 times the salary that I was making as an engineer. And I enjoy teaching. It's fun. I'm good at it. I honestly am a much better teacher than I am a machinist. And like, it was a good thing. It would have been really good for me financially. I would have, pretty quickly gotten caught up on things like retirement that I have definitely let slide for the, since being self-employed, and, worked on paying off the house and, just catching up on everything that needs catched up.
Preach it.
So, and like, I could have done that easily with, spending 25% of my income just keeping Subtract afloat if it was not even making any money. Like, there would have been plenty of income there, to the point where there was nothing else I could do to make more money in that time period. That being said, like, I don't know, I live perfectly comfortable with Audacity and everything else I do. So, because even just the DOC class by itself is enough to cover basically all of my fixed expenses. And
Mm-hmm.
then as long as I make like at least $1,000 a month to cover groceries and, gas and other non-fixed expenses, I'm fine. But it's like, well, my whole next year plan was built around this one class, and now it's gone. I'm honestly partially relieved, because it was like, for the last 4 weeks, I've been at between like 60 and 65 hours of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And the place I teach at is between an hour and an hour and a half away, depending on traffic.
Yep.
And I basically would wake up before anyone else in my family. I would go to school. I would teach for 13 hours. I would drive home. I would eat dinner, go to bed, wake up, and do it again. And like, I didn't really see my family. And I don't think I would have made it 11 months.
Yeah.
So I probably would have had to drop one of the classes.
I mean, that's the whole reason I started this. If we go back to like initial point of why do you become self-employed, you become self-employed so you can spend time with your family. At least
Yeah.
that's the story I hear from most people. And so it's once you've had a taste of that, it's hard to give that up.
So I don't know. I think the answer is I take more Subtract parts and I make more videos, which helps Subtract. I might have to go into the X world a little bit more. Not that X world, the
X
other X
World.
world, Xometry.
Oh.
Especially because I don't have it, like, I didn't expect to be like, I don't have parts lined up for the next, couple weeks or whatever, because I
Mhm.
wasn't expecting anything. But
They've been bugging us hard to take parts, so I wonder how their system's working. It seems like
I
sounds like there's a lot of stuff on there, at least from how much they have been hounding me recently. We've taken a couple jobs, but not many.
I still watch the job board, partially to see if any Subtract jobs show up there. Like, if there's a quote we miss and it went to Xometry, and to kind of keep it, just get an idea of where they're at. And it seems like either they've gotten a lot more demand recently, which I don't think they have, or a lot of their shops have dropped off.
That's
And I
what I'm
kind of
thinking.
think that's what's happening. Is I think because they were paying so badly and not treating shops particularly well, a bunch of them left, And now they're like, oh, we still need people to make us parts.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I don't know, it's probably good for the network, honestly. Like, it's probably good that they got rid of everyone who wasn't super serious.
Yeah.
Is what is. I might have to take a couple parts. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to take enough parts that I can stay on the network just in case. They're kind of my fallback strategy if we ever get super slow. And granted, I've been super slow and I haven't been taking them, but that's been a choice rather than needed.
Yeah, no, you needed the downtime. This is the calm before the storm, and you need to kind of circle the wagons.
Yeah.
I don't think I mixed metaphors there.
Calm before the storm and then circle the wagons.
I remember last time I talked about beating someone with a dead horse. I think is what I said.
Something like that.
Yeah.
If the horse is sufficiently dead.
All right. Speaking of dead horses, we have Patreons,
and they are not dead horses,
as far as we know. I've met a lot of them in person, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Patreons. Patreons help support the show. They're going to get us to IMTS in 2026 and other stuff. They pay Jacob, etc.
Ooh, speaking of which, right before you go to this, I have a thought. Patreons, if you have any ideas for a gift that we could machine or make, any ideas? Because I did the coins last time. I'm open to ideas. Due. So
we're due.
I want to do something for them again.
I wonder if I could run them on the mini mill at school.
Okay. Anyways, continue.
Our Patreons include, but are not limited to, Daniel R., James at Moultrie Made, Ryan at Strato Manufacturing, Austin W., Kyle K., Devin at Sinister Machine Works, James N., Ben at Prickly Pear Prototypes. Ooh, Ben, if you're listening, email Jacob or send him a message. Let's get you on the podcast. I saw that you just got your ITAR certification, and I want to talk about that. Cam S., Shep at Alderson Prototyping, Jacob at Zonham Precision, Jason S., Joshua H., I did that last time too. Christian Z, Freaky Climber, Prescott at 1Z, 2Z Systems, Trey V, Guy L, Alexander B, Scott Designed Everything, Jamie at JSpec Engineering, Chris Zyke at Zyke Precision, EJ at Nocturnal Welding, Chris at Thought Bomb Design, and as ever, Jake Brownson.
Did you mention our newest one?
No, I was going to get there. For some reason, I'm doing things out of order today, but we also have new Patreon, Luke at Fabtastic, which is a great name, by the way.
That is a great name.
For some reason, some of these people, like, I have this list that Jacob gives me, and I think he uses the same template every week, but I look at these names and I just read them differently. And I do that there's Jason S. and Joshua H. They're right next to each other, and my brain flips them. And then for some reason, it says Chris at Zyke Precision. I always read it as Chris Zyke at Zyke Precision. Just my brain being weird. All Patreons get, including free ones, get access to our weekly Q&A, which we'll do here in a second. Paid Patreons get early access to our episodes, which with Jacob, it's been like same day or like morning of next day, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And at $10 or above, you get your name on this list where I can butcher your name. Murray says, this is the Q&A. From Murray, Harrison said gauge blocks are one of the first pieces of measuring equipment that he would get. Murray says he almost never uses his. How is he using them? And in parentheses, I assume he's not talking about 1, 2, 3 blocks.
That is correct. So whenever you are measuring a part, if you can get at them with calipers and micrometers, that is always my first go-to. But I have found anything that I cannot measure directly with calipers or micrometers, I can usually either use gauge pens or gauge blocks to either transfer measurements or measure things that I couldn't with the calipers or micrometers. And sometimes you can use them in combination with a height gauge to kind of measure some things. Like, there's a lot, it's all part specific, so I can't really give you any exact examples, especially without not having a 3D model to like show you how to use them. But I will say whenever we're doing first article inspections or other types of inspections for things, we use them a surprising amount in those situations. And also, we have an inspection set, and then we have a shop set. And while you shouldn't use gauge blocks like this, that's why we call them the shop set. They can be very handy if you have a weirdly shaped part and you don't want to make a set of soft jaws, or there's an area inside the part that you need to strengthen whenever you're clamping on it because it's weak. And you can set up your gauge box to be the exact size you need to hold parts and keep them from warping and doing funny things while you're machining, provided you're not going to be in that area. And so, like, they can be used in combination with machining and inspection, although I keep those two separate. If you're using one in the machine, don't use it for inspection.
Yeah.
And so I just got a cheap set for like $80 off of eBay, and that's my shop set that I use for inside the machines. And then I've got a nicer set that I keep inside the inspection room for inspection purposes.
I think one of the things you want to keep in mind is not all measuring equipment is rated or is created equally, especially when you're talking about uncertainty of measurements. So on a good set of gauge blocks that are NIST traceable, the amount of uncertainty on those things is low. It's like millionths, if I remember right, and it'll say it on the calibration slip thingy.
Yeah, you'll get a piece of paper that shows every single gauge block and how far off it is from what it's supposed to be.
And with a certainty value on that. With a pair of calipers, the uncertainty on a pair of calipers, if I remember right, is something like 1.5 thou, where like basically you can't trust it to be more accurate than 1.5 thou in either direction. And even with a plus or minus 5, like let's say you have a tolerance that's plus or minus 5, and you measure it as like +4, like technically with the uncertainty of that pair of calipers, you could be outside. Or there's like a chance that you could be outside of that tolerance range.
And one thing that we've done on stuff, if we need to, is if we want to make sure that the calipers are giving us good measurements, is you can build up that gauge block set, measure it with your calipers to validate your calipers, and then measure your part. And then you've validated your calipers, and you know how accurate they are. So it helps to validate your measurement that you're getting on your part.
Yeah,
because I have found calipers being out of spec for what I was trying to measure and using gauge blocks to validate it. And we've actually, I mean, that's some of the ways that I've actually ended up tossing calipers and getting new sets, is that like in certain ranges, they might be off more than others. And you can use gauge blocks to kind of validate that.
Yeah. So even if you can measure it with like calipers, having the confidence of gauge blocks is nice sometimes.
Yeah. So like I find that like I'll go through a stint where I might not use them very much for like 2 or 3 months, and then I'll have certain parts that'll show up, and I'm just using them all over the place on those parts. I'm just constantly, they're like my number one go-to. And they're also great for go no go. So like there's times like if I'm putting a keyway in a part and it has a tight tolerance, I can set up a go gauge, and I can put it in that keyway, and I can slide it all the way down, and I can feel along the whole length, is it all in spec, rather than just taking a pair of calipers and measuring it in one location. And so like there's a lot of they have a lot of practical uses, go no go, as well as providing hard measurements.
All right, from Theo M. What are your thoughts on the new Haas Pocket Mill? Is it a legit machine in competition with the 1500 MX? Seems like a great garage machine, but the specs are quite limiting. Parentheses, 6K RPM, 200 inches a minute.
You know, it has the potential, but Haas has shot themselves in the foot with it, in my opinion. And it's the same thing that happened with their UMC 350, in my opinion. It was a fantastic machine, a fantastic idea, and they priced it out of making sense. You know, price wise as it stands, you know, it's a good price, but by the time you add enough options to it to make it comparable to other machines in its weight class, you've added a lot more money to it. And as me and you were doing right before this podcast, the mini mills actually can become cheaper than the pocket mill when you option them up to something reasonable.
I think I think Haas has two purposes for the pocket mill. The first purpose is education, where they're just going to buy the bare bones machine with no tool changer, no high speed machining, no probing, 30K, hand loading tools using edge finders
Yeah.
or a Heimer. And for that, I think it's pretty reasonable, especially because like if you're preparing students for industry, you want to prepare them with the Haas, not a Tormach, like the Haas controller. You want students to learn the Haas control, not the Tormach control. As much as I like Tormachs, they're not used in, aerospace machine shops or whatever. Not the kind of places where students are going to be going and getting jobs. So it makes sense to teach them the Haas control. But yeah, in terms of it as a garage shop, I think it's an awful choice. So let's see. For context, when I optioned out the pocket mill with everything that I would want to make it just comparable with the base bones Tormach, not even like making it good, just making it comparable, I ended up with $52,660. The Tormach, which again, I fairly bare bones layout. I included probing, I included flood coolant, but I don't think I had any other options, unless there's something I'm forgetting about that's like, duh, of course you want that.
Did it come with the tool changers? Does it come with the tool changer?
Oh, yeah, I definitely got the tool changer.
Okay.
And that came out to $47,399. So like $5K cheaper for the Tormach.
And you get a 10K
honestly,
spindle.
a much more capable machine. Yeah,
10K
spindle.
Much faster travels.
Almost twice the tool capacity.
Yeah. A little less horsepower, but not. I think now that it's up to 4 or 6 peak, I think it's a lot more competitive in that realm.
But a mini mill with very minimal options. I think I didn't include high speed machining. Like I was trying to make it usable, but bare bones. I came up with 51,390. So still 4,000 more than the Tormach, but 2,000 or 1,000 cheaper than the pocket mill. So I think the only way the pocket mill makes sense is if you are hand loading tools with no probing, like no accessories whatsoever. I would probably I take the pocket mill over an 1,100?
Ooh,
because you can get a tool changer, especially with the 1,100 being lower in price right now. The pocket mill is certainly a lot more cast iron than the 1,100.
Yeah, and it's going to be similar speed, except for the okay. If the pocket mill came with a minimum of 6K spindle instead of the 4K, if it came with a minimum of 6K, maybe the tool changer. If it came with those two options and kept the same price, I would think it would be far more compelling.
Even if it just came with the tool changer.
Yeah. If it
came I can deal with 4K if it has a tool changer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I would go 1,100 or pocket mill there. It might depend on what I was making. If I was making a little aluminum stuff, give me the 10K on the 1,100 all day. If you're doing stainless steel and titanium, Cat 40 definitely has some advantages there, as does a casting that's 3 times the weight.
Yeah, and they also have their one thing that I didn't compare them to was the tool room, the TM0.
Ooh, that's true. I think the TMOs, the TMOP, I believe that lands around mini mill prices, if I remember right. Yeah, you might be able to get them a little bit cheaper.
I was just watching someone who was talking about the TM0P versus the mini mill, and they liked it better than the mini mill specifically because it had a much higher Z height. And so you didn't worry about parts running into the carousel as much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but yeah, I mean, the TM0P starts off at 42, and my guess is when you option it, it's going to be pretty similar in priced to the mini mill slash Tormach.
Yeah.
So that'd be another option. I would probably consider the TM0P or the mini mill before the tool room in my world.
The before the pocket mill, you mean?
Yeah, before the pocket mill. Sorry.
Yeah. Or a Sile X7 or X5.
Yeah, yeah, or maybe
Um,
even a used machine. Honestly, like there's some. I think
yeah.
some used stuff is starting to come down in price.
I do not think you can beat the value of a used VF2 because used VF2s go for like one in decent shape goes for like 30 to 50K,
But
and
then you run.
that's yeah space issues, but that's a lot of machine for the price.
I was gonna say power. If you're on single phase, that kind of
Oh,
that changes the equation a lot.
true.
But yeah, I mean, there's no right answer or wrong answer. You
Except the
know,
pocket mill. That's the wrong answer.
the pocket mill is probably has to be a very specific set of equations to make it make sense. And for the average person, I don't see it making a whole lot of sense. I like the idea. I like the sentiment. If it had a couple more options by default, it'd be a lot more appealing. But I think it's the exact same thing that happened with the 350, the UMC 350. They just priced it out of making sense.
Yeah. I think that is actually the point of the pocket mill. I think the point of the pocket mill is for Haas to offer a cheap machine where in their advertising, wow, look, they have a machine starting at $30,000. And then you go onto their website and their builder and you option it out and you're like, oh, look at the mini mill. The mini mill actually makes more sense. And then you start
Yeah,
putting some more options on that and you're like, actually, I might as well get a VF2 at this point. And
yeah.
suddenly you've gone from $30,000 to $75,000.
That probably is honestly what it is more than anything.
Yeah. Or again, schools, um, like just hand loading tools, Edge Finder, perfectly fine for an education environment.
If
And
if
then you're teaching the Haas control instead of, the Sile controller or whatever.
if Haas had announced this before Tormach released their new machine or the Siles got as popular as they were, it would be a banger of a machine. If this machine came out before I got my Tormach 1100, I probably would have gotten this machine. I
Yeah.
probably would have found a way to make it happen. But the market has changed too much since then.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I still think there's room in kind of that price range.
oh yeah, definitely.
Maybe like if Tormach gave the same treatment they gave the 1500 to the 1100, like something smaller than the 1500 but good. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's room for, and I really hope Tormach. And again, I have no inside information here, by the way. I really hope Tormach kind of revitalizes their line with the 1500 technology,
Yeah,
or like I actually hope they start with the 440 or maybe the 770.
I was going to say those are the two machines that I would pick. I think the 440 um, does better than the in terms of like not needing a redesign compared to the 770. If I had to guess, because
That's fair.
the 770 is like their most serious machine. That's a 110, and I think
Hmm.
that one probably deserves treatment before the 440.
I think they sell a lot of 440s though, and I think they sell they used to sell a lot of 1100s. I don't think they do anymore.
Yeah,
And I think if they so I think from their standpoint, like revitalizing their most popular machine probably makes a lot of sense.
that could be.
I would if I had it my way, and I'm like again, I have no say in Tormach at all. And I don't know how this works out logistically, but I would love to see a like keep your 440M the way it is and maybe reduce the price on it some, and then have 440MX that gets the 1100 treatment, epoxy granite, linear rails,
You mean
servos.
1500 MX, not 1100.
Oh, I meant to say 440MX, I think.
No, I meant like you're saying give it the 1100 treatment. You
Oh,
mean the 1500
yeah.
treatment?
Give it the 1500 treatment. Give it linear rails. Give it epoxy granite. Maybe, I don't. because you also don't want to raise the price on it too much. So maybe not servos. Maybe just leave it with steppers to keep the price down.
That
Um,
that's the problem with the 440 is like if to improve it to the point you're talking about, it's gonna add a lot of cost. That's why I think the
yeah,
770 has a lot more room in that area, because if you could make something that's similar in terms of build quality to the 1500, but still have it plug into a 110 outlet, I don't think there's anyone on the market that could compete with that.
no. The other thing they could do on the 440 is give it an ISO 20 tool changer, get rid of TTS altogether, or
Yeah.
just save it for your M style machines. Like, because they have the spindle from the router. If they were to stick that on the 440 and make it like, then it would almost be good as a micro milling machine.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Mm,
it would basically be my office mill at that point.
yeah. Give it the that's what they could do if they were going to do a pro version of the 440,
Yeah.
is give it a high speed spindle, give it a, so like 20,000 plus, give it the ISO 20 tooling and servos and a granite. Like they could give it that treatment and then have it be, yeah, like exactly what you're saying.
And they
So
really, really, really need to do a fifth axis trunnion.
that would be nice. That's a lot to do, but that would be nice.
Yeah. I've never heard any interest from Tormach in doing that, other than maybe a couple employees that are like, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But if
Well,
Tormach were to get that down, it would be so huge for the industry because it would
yeah.
teach guys coming up 5-axis like from the ground floor.
Another thing that I could see them doing as like a product to augment their stuff would be to offer a 90-degree plate for their fourth axis so people could put a vise on
Hmm.
it. Like everyone has to buy that or make that secondhand. That'd be a great accessory to make just for their regular stuff.
Yeah. There's definitely some guys out there making them.
Mm-hmm.
I think even, did Norman have one?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
remember. Oh, are you ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm basically done
Okay.
with that.
Seamus W. Do either of you have any audiobook recommendations? Favorite machining and or business related books, and books that you just personally enjoy and would listen to while working? Oh
My
boy, do I have audiobooks.
You've been listening to a lot more than I have. My audiobook reading and listening has kind of dropped off a cliff since I've had such a short commute, and I don't really listen to them at work because I'm the type that I can only really focus on one thing. So if I listen to something while I'm working, it needs to be like music in the background that I don't focus on.
I have found that I definitely use audiobooks and podcasts to regulate my attention while I'm working. Because if I focus on, like, if the audiobook keeps me on track, then I stay on track working. And if it's something that, like, I don't know, if there's like a podcast that like has ads in it or something, then like that breaks my attention and then I get distracted elsewhere.
I will I will say for me, the one audiobook that I will always recommend to people in stress that are stressed out, because this can be a very stressful industry, is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That is like, I've gone through points in my life where I was so stressed out that I basically gave myself an ulcer and couldn't hold down food. And that book basically saved me.
Fun fact, I think the only time I've ever heard you swear is the title of that book.
Yeah.
And it's been multiple times now.
Yeah. It's a good book.
So I'm trying to think of how to go this in order. I mean, we can go with the obvious givens, the goal, the E Myth. There's 2 Second Lean, Purple Cow.
Saunders has
Uh,
like a whole recommendation list on his website, or he used to. I don't know if he still does,
it's not his website anymore.
but that's true.
All the Mike Miyakowicz books, the Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, the Pumpkin Plan, Profit First. Profit First is required reading for this podcast.
Think different.
Think Different. I'm trying to think if there's any other. In terms of more general business books, The Third Door is really good. It's kind of tangentially a business book, but it's very good. I have so many audiobooks, they're hard to find now. Jacob made me start reading Atomic Habits, and the first, I don't know, half an hour of that has been good. I read a book called Algo Speak, which is kind of about how social media is affecting our language. Authentic is about the founding of Vans, and that one was pretty good. Shoe Dog is about the founding of Nike, and that one was really good. Those are more like autobiographies and less like a business book, but they are, I think, interesting to people who are business minded. Critical Chain is by the Goal Guy, and that one's pretty decent. I've stopped doing as many nonfiction and moved more towards fiction, so I'm looking back through these. Skunkworks was pretty good. That one's about like Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, that one is really good.
Skunkworks. The Toyota Way. It's funny looking back through my Audible list in order because it's like, oh, look, I went through a phase there. The Great Game of Business is pretty good. 3 Signs of a Miserable Job. Taxes for Small Business, a quick start guide. That one was boring, as you may have guessed. Oh, Clockwork by Mike McCowitz, I think, is one we didn't say.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought of the design of everyday things by Don Norman. If you're interested more in the design side,
yeah, that one's good.
Small Giants, Relentless. I have one called Street Smarts that I read, but I don't remember. Delivering Happiness, that was a good one. That's about Zappos. I have more kind of in that. American Icon, that one was pretty good. Sam Walton, that one was good. Thinking Fast and Slow, I found that boring, and I don't think I finished it. Built from Scratch, that's about the founding of Home Depot. The Third Door, that one surprised me with how good it was. Good to Great, Blue Ocean Strategy, Covert Cows and Chick-fil-A, Grinding It Out, Extreme Ownership, I thought was fine.
That was the one I was going to say.
It's kind of basic for anyone who's had any sort of leadership training, but 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, I don't remember that one. How I Built This by Guy Raz. Scrum by Jeff Sutherland. There's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's classic.
Have I listed off just enough business books yet? The Machine That Changed the World, that one was pretty good. Okay. Traction by Gino Wickman. I think I was at the wrong point of my business for that.
Yeah.
I think you wanted some fiction, and I'm curious what you think about fiction books, because I don't think we've ever talked about fiction books before.
I think they can be really good. I also like true stories,
Okay.
like historical true story stuff that's happened. So my Audible is having issues, so I can't get to my list right now.
No.
But I'm gonna show a little bit of my nerd background here. I have always loved Halo as like a video game series, and I got into the audiobooks on those. That's kind of what got me into
I've read those.
Originally was Halo.
Yep.
And I've listened to like 24 of their books.
I did not get that far.
And so like it's fascinating. So from like a sci-fi genre, I enjoyed that. The Martian is really good. Mm-hmm. Once you listen to the audiobook or read the book, it's really hard to watch the movie because it's so much better. But anyone who's a book person always knows the book is always better. So that was
Have you ever read any of Andy Weir's other stuff?
Mm-mm.
Have you read Project Hail Mary?
Mm-mm.
No. Project Hail Mary, like I've read a lot of books. Project Hail Mary, definitely top 10, probably contender for top 3. It is so good.
My wife is an extreme book nut, so she's got
The Librarian.
She's got a bunch of stuff. Oh yeah.
I'm so surprised that she's into books.
Yeah. There's a couple others. There was one it's kind of a business book, but it's also a story, which is pretty good. It's Turn the Ship Around. It's a submarine commander, and he talks
Okay.
about taking his history of kind of taking the worst submarine crew or the sub ship in the Navy and turning it into the best. And it's a true story, but it's also a leadership book. It's pretty good. Um, there's a couple others that I cannot remember their names off the top of my off the top of my head, but there was one of a uh, it was based on a true story, and so some of the details have been obscured. But it talks about a cargo pilot in the military and kind of his adventures, coming flying in and out of hot zones and making all these crazy deliveries. So, like, I love that kind of stuff. That was pretty cool, but I can't remember the name of that one. It was a long time ago. Um, but yeah, what else you got?
So in terms of like fiction stuff, anything by Dennis E. Taylor. He wrote the Bobiverse books, which I originally wrote off the Bobiverse books for a long time because I thought the name sounded too dumb and silly. But that very quickly became one of my favorite book series. And he just released a new book called Flybot. It's kind of about AI and stuff like that. That one's really good. I just finished Isle of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson, which that's good. I don't know if I can recommend that one unless you've read a little bit more of Brandon Sanderson, but it probably does stand by itself. Uh, Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. Those are, I kind of think of them as one book, but I think that might be my favorite book, or at least at the moment. I really like Name of the Wind. John Scalzi writes some like fun sci-fi. Dennis Taylor is also in the like fun sci-fi category. He's kind of in Dennis Taylor's kind of in the fun, like heartwarming is the wrong word, but like I don't know, family friendly sci-fi. John Scalzi is in the like fun but deeply sarcastic sci-fi, and so I enjoy that a lot.
I think you have recommended Project Hail Mary before because I've downloaded it and I've never listened to it.
You should listen to it; it's so good.
I might have to do that. I'm going to have to do that.
I read all of The Wheel of Time not too long ago, and that took me a while. Brandon Sanderson, Stormlight Archive, the Silo series by Hugh Howey, that was very good. The what's the name of the series? The Red Gold series. What's that called? By Pierce Brown. I'm blanking on what the first book is called, but that was really good.
American Icon is a good one, but it's a true story. It's how Ford was saved.
You must have recommended that to me because I read that one.
I like that one. Let's see.
The James Herriot books, starting with All Creatures Great and Small, very, very, very different from what I normally read, but I really enjoyed those, and I enjoyed that TV show.
Did
It's
you
about
ever
a vet in like 1940s. Is he in Ireland or England? I don't remember. But
did you read or listen to The Power of Habit? Did I recommend that one to you?
no, I have, like I said, I'm working on Atomic Habits right now.
The Power of Habit will scare you, honestly,
Okay.
because it talks about habits and like these people that have done a ton of research on it. And this was back in like the early 2000s, I think. And well, the book came out much later, but a lot of the research was done in the early 2000s. And it talked about how way back then they were studying people's habits in like grocery stores.
Mm.
And I believe it was Target. And I guess this was like a famous case. Target started sending coupons for baby products to this family's 16-year-old daughter.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that story.
And she was pregnant and the parents didn't know, and that's how they found out. And it
Yeah.
was based off of her purchase history.
Becoming Trader Joe, that was a business book that was pretty good that I didn't mention. Books by Arthur C. Clarke and Robert Heinlein, those are like fundamental to the reasons that I am here now, like in this trade. That's what got me into engineering was Robert Heinlein books. Farmer in the Sky being one of my favorite of those.
You've listened to a lot more books than I have.
I have almost 500 books in my Audible library, and I frequently re-listen to books.
I have
Anne McCaffrey, another good.
Wow.
That was one that I listened to again when I was like 10. The Anne McCaffrey Dragon series.
Hmm.
I went through like a big Brandon Sanderson phase, and that's like a long portion of my Audible history. Oh, Let My People Go Surfing. That's the Patagonia guy. That one was pretty good. Yeah, I did like all the Brandon Sanderson books and then all the Wheel of Time books, and that's like, I don't know, 50 books or something, and that was a large portion of my Audible. Neil Stevenson is good. Cryptonomicon is a great book. This has probably become a really boring podcast at this time.
Yes, it is.
And granted, like the AI will edit out some of these silences as I'm just scrolling through my list of books here. But is it time to wrap it up? Oh, wait. The Perfectionists, actually a machining book. It's the one machining book I have in here. If anyone knows of other machining books, recommend them and tell me, and I'll listen to them and share them on the podcast, because I don't know of any. There's like the next closest thing I can think of to The Perfectionist is like there's a Tom Clancy book where they're talking about machining nuclear weapons, and that's the extent of what I can think of in terms of machining in a book.
So NYCNC still has their book recommendations. If you go to business, start our business, they have a recommended books for business section. One of them they have is The Small Time Operator, which I believe I bought that book in print, but I haven't actually read it. Or someone got it for me. One or the other.
Yeah, I have Small Time Operator. Now, that one is pretty good.
But they have a lot of the books that we've already mentioned on here. They have some other ones. But yeah. I do need to go back and re-listen to a lot of stuff because I've forgotten a lot of things.
You should listen to Project Hail Mary before anything else. It is fantastic.
I'll work on that one. That one sounds interesting, especially if it's by the same guy.
Yeah, it's one that you start and then you listen to all the way through without realizing it. And you're like, oh, I just listened to a 12-hour book in a day.
Yeah, the problem is I usually start those. Like, books like that, I will start them while I'm going to bed to kind of help put me to sleep. And then I'll look at the clock and I'll go, oh, it's 4 a.m. I'm going to get 2 hours of sleep because I stayed up all night listening to an audiobook.
Yeah. Which, speaking of which, I really should go to get bed because I need to wake up in like 6 hours from now. So,
all right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We managed to drag the last 30 minutes into slow book suggestions, but we appreciate you guys.
It's like if you had like a text-to-speech thing and you just pointed it at a bookshelf. That's what we just did.
So hopefully we didn't put anyone to sleep, or maybe this is our secret power. We're ASMR book suggestions.
That's why we get listens. People just listen to us to go to bed.
All right, thanks for hanging out with us, and this has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity signing out with AJ from Audacity Subtract. Taps and patience, our daily grind. In this machine shop, we'll always find joyous struggles, all intertwined. Taps and patience, one of a kind. So, we'll catch you guys later.
The outro music was really loud today.